Kris, now that your camera's back on, what shall we talk about for main topic number 4?
Well, for topic number 4, we're going to talk about Silverback Jr.'s question here. Hello, John, Rob, Kris, and Ray.
Well, Aaron's here.
The IMAX fan event was last night, and wow, what a movie. Twilight Boy is no more. That was truly the Batman. I know you guys got to go to see it last night. What did you guys think?
All right, thanks a lot for saying that in, man. And yeah, look, you guys know I've made no secret that the Batman is and has been my number 1 most anticipated film of the year. I obviously wanted the Ben Affleck version, but if it can't be Ben Affleck, Matt Reeves, great. The premise of it was wonderful. The trailers came out. They sold me on it more and more and more. We started hearing some early reactions from it last week, which only got me more excited. And a couple of reviews started coming out yesterday. And to be frank, even the negative ones I read, because I think the movie's holding like an 86, 87% right now. Even the negative reviews I read were very, very well done reviews, because reading their negative reviews actually got me more excited for the movie. And so, set up for supreme and utter disappointment, we went off last night to the AMC Burbank 16. We'll talk about AMC in a minute here. To go watch The Batman. And I will say this, and I mentioned this in our quick out of the theater review last night. The Batman is not a perfect movie. There are a couple of issues with it we'll talk about in a second. Nor is it the perfect comic book movie. But I have no qualms in saying this is the perfect Batman movie. When you go back, and I look back to when I was a kid reading The Dark Knight Returns for the first time, never in my wildest dreams, sometimes we can say like movies like The Avengers that we never, as children, we never would have imagined a movie like that could be made because of the visual effects aspect of it. But I never would have imagined they could make or would make a Batman movie like this back when I was reading The Dark Knight Returns for the first time. There has never been, like, Ben Affleck, you guys know I love Ben Affleck's iteration of Batman because his Batman, whether or not you love the movies or not, his Batman totally understands the dichotomy of Batman and Bruce Wayne, and that Batman is the true face and Bruce Wayne is the mask. Other iterations of Batman say that, but they don't show it. Ben Affleck's Batman did. But I have never seen any iteration of Batman that really felt like it was jumping off the pages of the comic book to me. That this is the detective. They've been making promises that we're going to get the detective in this movie. We've heard that before. My God, they delivered it.
Yeah.
Actually, before we get a big action sequence, well, no, that's not really true. We do get a fantastic action sequence with him in the streets before. But even then, like in the first few minutes of the movie, he's on a crime scene. He's collecting evidence. He's doing Sherlock Holmes, which is an aspect of the Batman we have not seen before on the screen. And it wasn't just one scene of service. Like throughout the movie, he is the detective. And I loved it. The action sequences were every bit as visceral and violent as we were hoping it would be, that the little clips that they showed on it would be. Matt Reeves, some people said this is the darkest Batman yet. They're absolutely right. Matt Reeves and Robert Pattinson really did decide, because we've always talked about Bruce Wayne is damaged. He died in that alley with his parents. He is damaged. Most Batmen we see on screens have some issues. That maybe if they talk to a therapist a little bit, they can work through This Bruce Wayne is capital D damaged. And he's aware of it. Like you always get that sense through the movie that he is completely cognizant of the fact that he is damaged. He understands that there are certain things, we won't go into spoilers, but there are certain things in him that push him to doing the things that he does and motivates, and he's aware of it. And he knows it. He even questions it a bunch as he gets into it. And the promise was a 7. The movie 7, not a 7 out of 10. We were promised like that 90s style serial killer thriller. Oh my God, they delivered.
Absolutely.
right from the opening scene. We see it in the trailer, by the way. There's an opening trailer where all the police are at a crime scene and the camera pans over and the Batman's in the room too with the cops, right? That's one of the opening scenes of the movie. Right from there, and what precedes that, you are floored. By the way, I would have had no argument if this movie was rated R.
Yeah.
I would have had no arguments for me if it had been given a rated R. But the violence is guttural. I mean, it's heavy, and then you get into these fast, slick action scenes, and I mean, Batman. I counted 3 people I think Batman killed in this thing, but whatever. That's another discussion for another time. But my goodness, Jeffrey Wright. The dynamic between Jeffrey Wright and him, like Gary Oldman and Christian Bale, they developed a pretty cool chemistry as Gordon and Batman. They really did. I think this was a better chemistry. Like, I immediately got hooked into the Jeffrey Wright Gordon and Pattinson's Batman. Like, they already had a shorthand with each other, and they trusted each other.
They felt like partners.
They felt like partners. Thank you, Kris. That's a perfect way of putting it. That was great. Zoe Kravitz as Catwoman is just, my God, so good. And when she gets into her action sequences, because they showed a little bit of it in that clip we watched, you buy it. Like the way she moves and the way she attacks and the way she does all the stuff that she does, you totally buy it. I actually really like the balance of the character as well. It was great. The fact that they truly investigate and they get into the underbelly, the crime-ridden aspect of what Gotham is and how infected and corrupt and everything to its core that the city was. They explored it in beautiful terms. Is it dark? Yes. Is it bleak? Yes. Does that movie mean it will not be for everybody? Like we talked about last week. It's like I didn't expect this movie to have a 95% or a 97, 98, 99% because the kind of movie this is promising to be is not going to work for everybody. But they delivered all of it. And I will say this, and I won't mention it again. Some people are saying this movie's too long. I concur. I think they could have scalped a good 15 minutes out of this, particularly in the third act. For me, I think they could have cut that out. There's also a creative choice they made closer to the end of the movie that I won't give any specifics on that I kind of wish they didn't do. Other than that, if you were going to pull out a blueprint with God, and God was going to sketch out the blueprint of a perfect, in its DNA level, Batman movie, this is it. This is it. I cannot wait. I'm not going to sit here and say this is better than The Dark Knight, or I'm not going to say that. All I'm just saying is I cannot wait for Friday so we can go back and watch this again. Anne was like literally the drive home, Anne was buzzing. Anne was like literally buzzing in the car and talking the whole way home and all this kind of stuff. I'm like, I cannot wait to get in the theater and see this again. It delivered. It met my number one most anticipated movie of the year, and it delivered on all aspects. Rob, you were there with me last night. You had a chance to watch The Batman. What are your thoughts now, 16 hours later? What did you think?
Well, I mean, I was sitting next to Kris. I was knocked out by this movie. I was stunned by it. And my whole thing, John, about movies or really any kind of narrative, I'm all about authorship. And I want to feel that when I'm reading a novel or reading a comic or watching a movie or watching a TV series, that there is real authorship behind it, that I'm getting a point of view that is maybe not, I mean, obviously movies are a collaborative art form, but there's always somebody at the top. Matt Reeves both co-wrote the script and directed this film. And his point of view, his take on this material, this well-worn material that we've been watching various iterations of for over 50 years now. How do you bring something new to this material that we haven't seen before? Well, he did that. And he took everything I wanted from this movie, I was given. It's a sprawling, epic story. Yes, it touches on themes that we've seen done in all different kinds of movies, whether it's Seven or whether it's Chinatown or whether it's, take your pick, even The Godfather. You know, there's elements of all of that in this film, but it's put together in such a way, it's so self-assured, and it knows exactly what it wants to be, and it's presenting a tone, a mood, and a story that is shows such authorship that I was absolutely captivated by it from beginning to end. And I was also astonished at just how much of a meal it is. It's approaching its storyline from many different angles. The acting was superlative. For anybody, look, I'm already hearing pushback. Robert Pattinson was great in this role, and he's almost an alien, John. He's almost like, I mean, you said he was damaged. He's not just damaged. I don't think he even feels that he's he's untethered from humanity. And from the beginning of the film that he's desperately looking to connect himself back up with mankind, the human race. And he's observing the human race. And you hear this voiceover of him near the very beginning of the movie where he's looking for a reason he's looking, it's like he's adrift literally in the ocean, and he wants to come back to shore, and he doesn't know how, and he doesn't know if he should, and he's like an alien. And I love that. I love that he is like, and the whole journey about this movie, people are talking about, I didn't find this movie too long at all because I was completely immersed in all of it. And it is not, look, this is not your fun, mirth-filled, wackadoo Batman. This is not Adam West and Burt Ward. This isn't even, I mean, people are going to compare it to Christopher Nolan. How does it compare? Even Christopher Nolan's movies have more of a pulp comic sensibility than this movie does. This movie is so hard-boiled noir 1940s. There is almost no fantasy elements to this at all. It's firmly set in the real world, which I was there for. John, like I said, I'm kind of overwhelmed by the film, but most importantly, it made me realize that studio movies can still be the most electrifying, most incredible examples of filmmaking, and that Warner Brothers allowed Matt Reeves to realize his vision in such grand fashion. Let it be a lesson to studios. If you want your IPs to continue to be relevant, you need to find creatives. You need to find auteurs that really want to adapt your material. Don't just go out and you shouldn't be picking people to direct. You should find people who make it their life's work to take your IP and turn it into something special. Because that's what we got here. And it is not for everybody. And there's going to be a lot of people that are going to bitch and moan and complain, and because there always are. But for those of you who are open to see something, we got plenty of different iterations of Batman. This isn't just a great Batman movie. This is a unique film that I was stunned to get from a major motion picture studio in 2022.
And by the way, I don't think, I might have missed it, but I don't think either of us have mentioned Dano.
Nope.
Dude.
Paul frickin' Dano. This is the guy with that mutant level, Omega level power level that we saw in There Will Be Blood, and he brought it in here in spades.
Dude, there's one scene, I'm not gonna say what scene it is. I think the whole theater was like leaning back in their seats, just like, oh my God. I mean, I just, wow. Wow. Everybody, I thought Zoe Saldana. Why am I saying
Kravitz?
Zoe Kravitz? I thought Zoe Kravitz was sublime.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
And she's called upon to do a lot of different things. And I have to tell you, she, not only was she hard boiled, but she had a vulnerability to her.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And a real centered place. And I was taken aback by her performance. Blown away.
Guys, we want to take a second and thank one of the sponsors of this video, Stamps.com. You know, they call what I and what a lot of you guys do small business, but to us, it doesn't seem small. It's the world to us. And you can't afford to miss out on opportunities to grow and keep your customers wanting more. Because time is money. Don't waste either with repeated trips to the post office. With Stamps.com, you can skip the trip and focus on how to take your business to the next level. Stamps.com lets you print official postage right from your computer and saves you money in the process, so you can spend less time at the post office and more time making your customers happy. Stamps.com gives you access to all of the post office and UPS shipping services that you need right from your computer. And get discounts you can't find anywhere else, like up to 40% off USPS rates and 76% off UPS. So stop overpaying for shipping with Stamps.com. Sign up with the promo code Campea for a special offer that includes a 4-week trial, free postage, and a digital scale. No long-term commitments or contracts. Just go to Stamps.com and click on the microphone at the top of the page and enter the code Campea. let's go over Kris as you were there last night watching this movie. I know you had high expectations going in as well. What are you thinking about it once you walked out of the theater, and how you feeling about it now?
Oh, I really enjoyed this. Getting handed that little snippet of Long Halloween, too, one of my favorite Batman comics. I was like, oh, we hit that mark for me. We hit that level. I'm so glad you brought up all the stuff about Selena, because I love the When in Rome part of the Catwoman story that Tim Sale did and Jeff Loeb. And we get that Catwoman. We get this sleek, vulnerable but kick-ass woman who can hold her own but also doesn't always want to have to. She's so layered, she's so nuanced. We have Paul Dano not going for the gimmick but delivering someone who fully believes in their own ideals, which is so much more terrifying to have a villain who has an ideology that they firmly believe in, as opposed to being somebody who's just zany and there to fight the Caped Crusader, We have a really compelling character study here. I'm so glad, too, that Rob brought up the alien nature of this, because there was one scene with Robert Pattinson where I was just sitting there going, connect, come on, connect more in this scene. And it makes sense that he's not. It so makes sense.
He doesn't know how.
Yeah. And that now going back on, I'm like, I can't wait to watch that a second time and go, I see this. I get this. It's so noir. The voiceover is so pulp, gumshoe sounding. Gotham is such a interesting character in its own right. I'm so glad the Waynes had the fortuitous nature of moving into a Gothic cathedral from Milan. There are some aesthetic issues for me. There are some moments where I think that Reeves went style over substance, where it was, why would you do that? Why would you do that in your home? But okay. All right. But for the most part, I really enjoyed this. I was wrong about a few things. I'm not crazy about one of the things that happened towards the end. And I do think we have some pacing issues. But man, I'm excited to see this movie again. And it didn't feel like 3 hours. I didn't have to take a pee break, you guys. I was on the edge of my seat.
I had a big beer beforehand, and I had a large Diet Coke and didn't have to do it.
Yeah, I had like
venti
3
coffee.
Cokes at dinner before we went into the theater. I didn't make it all the way through.
I would have been peeing in 10 minutes if I had that.
John, there is something I wanted to address. There's a lot of people I've seen already talking about the third act. The third act of
which
this
I'm
movie.
not going to lie to you. Out of the 3, I think it's the least strong act of it, but there's some highlights in it for sure.
But I would say this, Gotham is a character in this film.
Absolutely.
And it isn't until the third act of the movie that the city as a whole is brought in. I mean, the whole idea of we see the city at ground level, but there's a holistic level to Gotham. All of Gotham. Batman is the defender of all of Gotham, not just the various rotten points.
Not just the Narrows.
And and I think that when it expands outward and when the story gets bigger, you needed to have that, because Batman needed to connect with all of Gotham.
I don't disagree with you that you needed to have that. I just thought that, we're trying to stay vague, I just thought that could have been done a little bit better. I didn't think it was bad. I thought it was good. I just it was not that. It wasn't humming at a 10 like the other parts of
there's I just loved it. And there was something very biblical about what's going on there. And there's so much going on in this film. I just appreciated seeing a movie that aspired to this level.
Let me ask this question. Who suddenly is dying for this Penguin show? I am.
Oh, man.
I am. At first,
I was wondering when you guys were going to start talking about Colin Farrell.
Oh my God! Because when they made this decision, I thought, okay, cool. They're going to do a Nas. All right, yeah. And Colin Farrell looks great in it. And I think he's. I've loved him ever since In Bruges. Sure. Okay. This could be good. Nah. Now I came out of that theater, besides thinking, my God, I cannot wait to come back to the theater to watch this again. I'm like, when is that damn Penguin show?
Well, and especially after yesterday with we're going R on this. We're going heavy into this.
Oh, yeah.
With that kind of ideology of yes, lean into the brutality. Lean into that seedy underworld that he is so comfortable in.
And you know how we said, by looking at him, the pictures of Oz in the movies, you'd never guess that was Colin Farrell?
Right.
you can watch this movie and never know that's Colin Farrell.
Yeah.
Really?
If you
He
didn't
completely
know that
just
was Colin
transformed.
Farrell,
No.
you are not walking out of that theater.
His accent, or it was.
Yeah, I was
great.
gonna say, what is his? Because
It's-
Colin Farrell has such a distinctive Irish accent. So
Oh
I'm-
no, he's got like a New
It's
York
like a
kind
New
of
York,
a.
New Jersey thing,
Yeah.
which is pretty typical because Gotham's supposed to be a New Jersey kind of hybrid.
Sure.
And that's why Harley Quinn always had that. She had the traditional Jersey accent, which was traditional
And
Gotham.
can we just talk about John Turturro too?
I love.
how
I was gonna
sharp
ask about him too. I love him. What? How is he?
I'll admit, I didn't love hearing that he got cast in it. Totally take that back.
Oh my
Why
god!
would you not love John Turturro getting cast in anything?
Because I just didn't think that playing that kind of role. I think about him in the Transformers movies, and I'm thinking, like, I don't know if I want to bring that into a Falcone, but then I'm watching him. He's like, oh yeah, this is the same guy from Oh Brother Where Art Thou.
Yeah.
And Big Lebowski, he can do anything.
adapt to this,
And to live and die in L.A.
and he
Watching-
was so good, Rob.
Watching him in this right now and in Severance,
Oh.
having these two roles at the same time.
Which, by the way, thank you for turning me on to Severance.
it's
So good.
But it's such a dynamic performer, so different.
And I have to say, I mean, we've been listening to Michael Giacchino's score.
So good.
But oh my, I've been listening to his score. I've been loving his score, but I kept thinking, how is this going to work in the movie? Like I had no sense. A lot of the time, you kind of get a sense of what the movie is from the score, and I couldn't. I love this music, but I'm like, is this going to work for what they're? Oh my God, does it work? I mean,
So powerful.
And also, I have to say, the visual effects in this movie are astonishing.
Top notch.
And especially the climax, I'm like, oh my God, especially compared to Moonfall, which has some similar. So I'm like,
We
what
knew it had
the
to come back
hell?
to Moonfall.
I know. I mean, God, the effects, everything about this movie. It's funny because, I guess because I read Batman comics my whole life, and Batman comics run the gamut. I could read Batman in The Outsiders. I could read Batman in the comedic version of Justice League. I could read The Dark Knight Returns and Batman Year One from Frank Miller. I could read Neil Adams and Denny O'Neil's Batman from the 70s. So I've read Gotham by Gaslight. I've read so many different Batman stories in my life. And this was like reading, it was like opening the pages of a new iteration of Batman, because this is so different than what we've seen before.
And we only touched on him for a second. Let's talk about Robert Pattinson.
Oh,
Let's talk about Twilight Boy. He killed it. He absolutely killed it. And, I kind of alluded to this a little bit earlier, that, whereas Ben Affleck was really the best Batman to really grasp and understand Batman is the real face and whatever, Robert Pattinson got it too. But again, and I mentioned this earlier, he truly grasped that the comics always joke, there's something wrong with Batman. I mean, there's something fundamentally broken about Batman, right? Besides being top-rate genius, all this kind of stuff. I've never seen it expressed as well as what Robert Pattinson did here. He managed to carry, by the way, I don't think he smiles once in the movie. I don't know that there's a single smile that he gives in this entire movie. But
nor should he.
He carries that intensity and that thing. And listen, he is not the biggest Batman we've ever had, but he exudes power. Like he's approaching the street gang that we see in the trailer, you just know, God, you guys are fucked. Like, you just know he carries himself in a way that he's able to just do it. And at every step of this movie, he convinced me this is the Prince of Gotham. This is the Batman. I never doubted it for a second. And he's going to silence. The only people who will not be silenced are the ones who don't watch this movie. I mean, he's just, you can't walk out of this and go, Pattinson didn't do a very good job. Yeah, he did. He was great.
There's a real choice made in his performance, and that choice, he goes all in on it. Mm-hmm. And I just appreciated that he's always like, if you look at him, he's always looking. They're like these long. There's that moment in the funeral sequence where I think we've seen it in trailers, where he connects with a child, and he's completely understanding what, and he just holds this fixed gaze. He doesn't even do anything. You know, and it's really hard to hold a gaze like
Yeah.
that for as long as a camera's pushing into him. And you feel in that moment, you're seeing the pain that he knows what that kid is going to go through.
And this is something Aaron can definitely speak to too. When you're doing on camera work, the camera's smarter than you. The camera's going to pick up on every micro facial movement that you make. It's going to know what you're thinking. And so he really, really just does such a good job of that too, of just really keying into what's feeling inside, right? Coming out and exuding that way. I also love too, and I wasn't expecting, because we in the trailer have him yelling, right? He's so soft-spoken. He's so soft-spoken in this. And I mean, you don't have to be the loudest person in the room when you're wearing Kevlar and bat ears. So there's that.
As Teddy Roosevelt said, speak softly and carry a big stick.
stick.
Exactly. But there's a lean in quality. And there is that kind of, I know this is an odd comparison, but Devil Wears Prada, right? Why would you yell if you're important? Important people don't yell.
Right.
Important people have you lean into them. And there is that quality to this of, I'm going to speak when I need to, when I have something important to say and to add to the conversation. And it's executed so well.
Also, we've always seen Batman that are, even though we saw Christian Bale become Batman, you know, but when he went back to Gotham, he'd been traveling the world for 10 years.
Right.
Training and honing. This is a man who's newly minted as Batman, who is untethered from the world, who doesn't understand quite who and what he is. He's trying to figure it out. He tells us so in the movie. We even have that. We have he has a journey and an arc, and he makes this arc through the film. And there's going to be a lot of people that I think are put off by this because they're used to seeing the fully formed Batman, that ass kicker. I mean, Ben Affleck is the fully long battled, grizzled veteran of wars, whereas Christian Bale is newly minted, full of piss and vinegar. This is a Batman that is very different and very not fully formed.
And one other thing we should mention that we have not brought up yet, because he becomes the one emotional anchor for Bruce. Andy Serkis is Alfred. It's hard to... I love Jeremy Irons' Alfred. I do. Michael Caine is kind of the model for me for Alfred. Although I can't remember the gentleman's name. I wasn't a huge fan of Gotham, but the guy who played Alfred in Gotham was also very good, I thought. I loved Andy Serkis's Alfred here. He, in one moment, would be the very proper English gentleman. He does not take Bruce's shit either, which I really like that. Bruce is also very short with him. But as you get into the movie, he becomes that one. Alfred becomes incredibly important because, and we're not going to get into details or anything, but he is the anchor of Bruce's humanity. If there's anything human left in Bruce, it's Alfred that anchors that for him.
And Bruce knows it. You know, that's the one thing. I mean, he goes to Andy Serkis because if he didn't have him, he would be lost.
Yeah.
He would be drifting off into the middle of the ocean. And he would lose his humanity entirely.
Well, Alfred is the closest thing that he has to a parent because
Yes.
he went off to boarding school and had multiple teachers, but it was Alfred, and it's actually. It's no wonder that he would sometimes be short with him. It's kind of like when you go back home to visit your parents, you revert into that 14-year-old asshole that you were.
Yeah.
You're sleeping in your old room and your mom's like, it's time for dinner. And you're like, fuck you, Mom, I'm on the phone. Not that anyone should talk to their mom like that.
No.
And not that I do. But there is that thing where you revert back to that teenage self. And so it's no wonder that he feels like he can be that short with the one person who has been the parent figure in his life, the stable person who he's known since his parents were alive.
And Serkis does a great job. And all I'm going to say is this: I am looking forward to seeing Alfred fight. That's all I'm going to say.
Well, and you could tell that he was clearly an ultimate badass. I mean,
He's all scarred up.
Yeah, that guy was
that,
clearly special forces or spec ops or I don't know what he was, but he was scary. And his performance, let's also give Andy Serkis a shout out because he directed Carnage, Venom: Let There Be Carnage, and he did this. So in terms of an MVP player for comic book movies, pretty good.
Yeah. Real quick, I just want to say, too, I know we keep talking about how there's not a lot of, this is a dark movie. This is a very, very grim movie. There is hope at the end of this. And I don't want to spoil anything, but we have a little nugget of something in there where we go, okay, all right.
I got choked up at the end of this movie. Like to the point where I literally, I'm thinking about it right now. I'm getting all, I literally, for the last hour and a half of this movie, I don't think I moved.
No, y'all, no one I don't think has ever seen Robert Meyer Burnett be speechless, except for me.
Yeah.
Where it was just like, wow, okay, the movie's done, and he's just.
Yeah, I
It was
was
so
staggered
great.
by
I
this
forget,
movie.
because somebody brought it up in the live chat. I got to mention this too. I'm not going to go. You see, it's in the trailer, so you know this is in the movie. I'm just saying. I've never seen the introduction of a car in a movie like the Batmobile is introduced in this. You could feel it in the audience too. Like when the Batmobile first arrives, and we're not going to give you any detail, but when the Batmobile first arrives, you're like, you could feel it in the audience. And the sound design
Oh, dude.
of the you know what it reminded me of? Not that it's identical. It reminded me of the audio design and the sound design in the pod race scene in The Phantom Menace, one of the few good things about that movie. But once the Batmobile appears on screen, and the engines start to rev, and you feel the bones in your body shaking with the revving of the engine and the power of that car. It's like, oh
Dude,
my
the
God.
Batmobile is ferocious.
It's awesome. It's
I
so
mean,
good.
it was, a lot of people talk about, oh, it's just a big muscle car. Well, yeah, but it worked in the context of the movie it's supposed to be. But my God, I've never seen people like be affected so much by sound.
By the way, just quickly, Mujaba in the live chat is saying, we need a Batmobile solo movie. Absolutely.
I mean, if
My
Knight Rider
God.
could be an entire television
There you
series.
go.
And there you go. We need a Batmobile solo movie.
You know, I know. Okay, so I obviously don't have a lot to say since I haven't seen the movie. I will be seeing it for the first time with you guys
On Friday.
and I'm so excited. And as much as I would love for this to be my 3.5-month-old child's first movie, we might have to get a babysitter so Tom and I can actually watch a movie for once in a theater as adults. But that being said, my very first acting teacher in Los Angeles, the brilliant Tom Todoroff, before you could do any scene work in class, he would not assign you any scene work until you had, in his eyes, mastered the prologue from Romeo and Juliet. And if you didn't master it in your performance, you had to do it again. You had to go back. Nope, you didn't get it. You got to go back and do it again, or you would not get assigned a scene in class. And that was very frustrating for a lot of people. But what I loved about that was his point was this: if you cannot tell a story that has been told 1,000 times and make it your own, make it unique, and make people hear it in a new way, then what are we even doing here? Why are you trying to be an actor?
That's a really good point.
And so for this, I think that Batman at this point is kind of similar in the way that we all know that there are the different iterations of Batman, excuse me. And we know that Michael Keaton's Batman is a thing. We know that Christian Bale's Batman is a thing. And different directors' Batman is a thing. And so for Matt Reeves to come in and go, okay, I know that there is an expectation. And to be able to find the balance between what is the expectation of this franchise that is so much bigger than anyone who is a part of it, and how do I put my own stamp on it as a director? How do I, as Robert Pattinson, put my own stamp on it as an actor and still fulfill the obligation that is there for such a specific type of movie? I mean, that is really an incredible feat. So regardless of whether you even like the movie or not, just the simple attempt is worth noting. But I also think that when people say, oh, there's no new ideas in Hollywood, sometimes the retelling of a story is an original idea in itself.
Oh, absolutely.
Which
And
is
can sometimes be more difficult.
Absolutely, because you're always going to be compared to the one before. And so I really, even sight unseen, I commend Matt Reeves and I commend everyone in this project. And as far as Zoe Kravitz and her vulnerability, that doesn't surprise me at all. If you saw her in Big Little Lies,
so
her
good.
performance is so understated, but has this bubbling undercurrent that really flows through the whole thing. So when her character finally does explode, you know that's been building. So I really think that Zoe Kravitz, similarly to what we were saying about Ariana DeBose earlier, she is really carving out a niche for herself of, I can do it all, and you're not going to put me in a box. And I love that.
You know what else, John? I think you're absolutely right about that. That point you made was that's what a great point to make about any IP or any. I love the fact that Batman was Batman for 80% of this movie. He was in his costume. I mean, I love the fact we've never seen Batman just saunter into a room with 100 cops. Just walk in and they're all, everyone knows who Batman is. Batman is not hiding. People like winged bat terrorizes city or whatever. Wait till they get a look. No, everyone knows who Batman is. He is a fixture in the city. He's always in costume. He wanders into crime scenes. That's why Commissioner Gordon is like partnered up with him. That struck me right off the bat.
Yeah.
The first time you see
we've
Batman.
never really seen that before.
Never seen it before. And that is immediately telling you, and it was a little, for me, I have to say, I'm like, that was interesting. I was so not used to that. And once you settle into that, you know that's just another aspect. Very different Batman. Very different thing that you've ever seen before.
All right, guys.
Is there a post-credit scene, though?
No.
Not really.
Okay, well, no and not really are two very different answers.
The best way to put it is there's a message, but let me put it this way. After 3 hours, you don't need to stay in your seat.
Okay.
I would not say there's any need to stay on your seat.
Although that score of the end credits is beautiful.
Oh, yeah. If you just want to sit down and listen to the score.
Especially if you're seeing it in a huge theater.
Yeah. Then by all means. All right, guys. We're going to be talking a little bit more about Batman here on the next topic. But for now, what do you guys think? Were you one of those people who got to see the IMAX big advanced screening of the Batman last night? If not, where's your anticipation level for the Batman right now? Whatever you guys are thinking, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts.